So you were a coach yourself, you were in training. You had to pivot in the pandemic like so many other folks do.
Hmm.
Thanks for sharing that you used your job to also help fund this, because sometimes people think, for folks who do have a job, I know
Hmm.
sometimes people aren't in situations, they start their businesses because they don't and they have to figure it out. But
Hmm.
in your case, you still had your job, were able to use what was going on there to support this venture of yours, right? And I want to just point that out because sometimes people feel like, oh, I'm not, or and are told by other entrepreneurs, unfortunately, that, oh, if that's a hobby or that's a side hustle, if you're not really in it doing it all the time for all the time, I'm like, no, none of that shame stuff about
Hmm.
you got to hold a job and it's going to help you make this thing work, because entrepreneurship is hard, y'all. Like,
Hmm.
it's not
Yeah.
easy cake that oh yeah, let's just travel the world and
Hmm.
coach while I'm in Bali or something. It doesn't work like that. So whatever you're seeing on Instagram, it doesn't work like that.
Hmm.
So no shame on that, but and
Hmm.
so thank you also for highlighting that. And you know, you're a coach who also decided to work with me as a coach.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what was kind of that reasoning of, okay, because you started in 20, you said 2017, 2018, 20,
So officially 2020. So it's been 3 years since
officially
I officially
2020.
started my business. Yeah.
Yeah. So officially 2020, and
Hmm.
what was happening then, and that you're like, okay, you said not everyone's, you're not really taught, you don't really know how to start a business, right? What am I
Hmm.
doing? Right.
Yeah.
So what was that transition like, or what was that decision point?
Yeah. And it was terrifying, right? Because initially there's a great thrill, right? Because um, you're saying, wow, I have a business structure now. I actually can, have a real domain name and not just some Gmail or, free WordPress account, because it just feels so amateurish when you do that. Right. But when you put this in, and it's great up until you realize you need to find, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to build up capital? How am I going to, find revenue streams? And, for a systems person like me, as a pharmacist, I wasn't worried about finding, new business. We had a biz dev team, we had a marketing team that took care of those kind of things. And then you realize when you're saying, oh, I have to wear all the hats now, where do I find money? And you don't know. And then unfortunately, right, just a heads up, guys, if you do start a new business, there's a lot of people that are going to kind of take advantage of the fact that you're a novice at the situation, and they'll offer you solutions that are probably outside your price point, but they know how to massage your pain point enough to say, oh, well, let me just pay for this solution. And then like, you don't really get better. And now you've drained all your capital on a solution that's not actually helping you move forward. Right. So be careful with that. But yeah, the first step was, okay, where do I find money? And I saw my risk aversion, just front, like full frontal in my face, just being like, hey, you got to find money. Like you got to get over yourself, right? As the saying goes, scared money don't make money. And, and you have to say, okay. And so my solution was, well, where can I find money now? It's like, okay, I contracted with a private tutoring association. And so that was enough for me to break even. And I'm very big on making sure it's like, if I compartmentalize this amount of money, that's the amount of money I'm going to use. Like, don't just bleed personal costs every time you're like, well, I might be overdrawing my business account, so let me find creative ways to use like personal money for business expenses. And that's a dangerous precedent to set, right? But yeah, that was the first part, was just saying, okay, who can offer me referrals, who can throw things at me, if I'm not directly finding business. And so that's still the turning point, right? Things moved in the right direction, but a little slower than I would have preferred. And to get to a point of awareness to realize, hey, ultimately I'm going to have to kind of go after what business that I want on my terms, on my pricing, as opposed to settling for referrals. That's been the transition that I know I need to work on this next year. So that's how I found you, right? Because I just said, you know what, maybe there's a better way. I'm not looking for instant gratification necessarily, but we all like it when we like we have that we catch that first big fish, and you're like, oh, you can kind of exhale just a little bit. But
Mm.
yeah, so the second year, so the first year, yeah, I survived by doing private tutoring, and then I appeared on about 70, 80 podcasts, just going nuts, just try to get that off the ground. Because, and I'm happy to quickly elaborate on that, right? For those of you who are interested in podcasting, it's a good way and a very affordable way to get your name out there, because you're basically exchanging value, like valuable content, in exchange for access to an audience you didn't have otherwise. So as long as you can provide valuable content, like, and it aligns well with what the coast needs and their brand, you're more than likely going to build a great network of people that already have platforms out there that can get your name out there. And so that was how I kept bootstrapping, because I was like, okay, podcasting does not require a lot of money. It does require a lot of time, which I have. And so let me do that. Once I got my coaching, yeah, go ahead.
To be clear, yeah, guesting on podcasts, not
Guesting on podcasts, yeah, not
having
hosting.
your own. Just to
Correct.
make sure that was clear.
Yeah. You can start your own podcast, guys, and that's a whole different strategy. But for me, yeah, I knew I did not have the capacity to host my own or try to market that, so I was content to just make a circuit as a guest, and yeah, that.
I mean, a pretty large one. 70.
Yeah, I got a little carried away. I won't deny that.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's amazing. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So then the next year, after I got my certification officially, when I got enough hours to pass that exam, that helped open a couple more doors. And for those of you who are looking at certifications, like, it's basically a good way to get your foot in the door. And at the same time, no one really, like, companies will look for that, but people look for people, right? Much like Carissa said in the beginning, people want the Carissa Begonia experience. People want the Jerry Fu experience, right? And so to offer something unique that goes beyond just saying, well, yeah, his quality control is all right. Like, he obviously passed the exam, but there's a lot of certified coaches that, and not to undermine the credibility of the credential, but you may or may not get someone just good just because they passed an exam. So just take that with a grain of salt. But at the same time, yeah, so that started to open more doors, right? I started coaching through other platforms that are nice. And, but understandably, guys, like, you realize once the money comes in, you say, okay, well, this is nice that I'm in the black, but how much in the black, right? Is this enough to sustain the lifestyle you're looking for? And so, that's why I signed up for Carissa's program, to say, hey, you know what, let me take a bigger chance on this, to say, maybe I'm missing something, to see if I can move myself forward faster. Or if I'm able to, what do I still need to shore up so that I actually get this plane off the ground and is flying at the altitude I wanted to, preferably sooner than later.
Yeah. Sooner than later, right? And I think that's the thing that what coaches, even you as a leadership coach, help people, get places with more ease. Mm-hmm. and potentially faster, right? So that's what I do for business owners. Mm-hmm. I love that. I love the breakdown of the process. It's like, well, first, like, money, income, what's my bandwidth, what's my budget for investing in myself, aside from the coaching certification to become a coach, but being a business owner. And one thing I want to point out for a lot of folks is sometimes people don't realize that when you get a coaching certification, or some lot of consultants are, starting businesses based off what they used to do in their former jobs, right? Mm-hmm. And you're good at that. Like, you get good at that, right? The business end of it is different, though, is a separate hat, if you will, to wear, that you probably don't have expertise in because you are a newer business owner, right? So wanting to separate those two, like, roles that you play as when you are starting your own, like, service-based business, is that oftentimes you are an expert already on either coaching, again, or the expertise that you come with from your previous job, but owning that I'm new to the business side, right? And wanting to expedite that or make this simpler or easier, because there's a lot of noise out there, like you were mentioning. So, and a lot of these programs, these sort of coaching certifications, don't teach you that the business side. They teach you how to be a coach. And I remember when I was going through my emotional intelligence certification, it was like a module or like a day on, well, this is how you get clients, and this is the business side of it. And I'm like, oh my God, my programs can last a whole year, like, on teaching you how to, like, do marketing and sales, and even developing your programs, your packages and stuff. So it's wild to me. So for folks who are kind of thinking, or maybe experiencing that, like, these are two distinct roles that you now own as the business owner, and you probably are really good at one. And the point is, you're also trying to learn how to be, again, a business owner, the CEO. But the other thing I was taken away from what you were sharing was criteria of, okay, this is like my budget. This is what I need to do. But you were talking about criteria even of people who can help, because there's a lot of noise out there. Right? So what were some of those things that, like, were your criteria of even vetting me and saying, all right, like, she's not that. So yeah, I am curious.
what are the gears clicking inside here? Yeah, I mean, part of it was just my own struggle to say, well, I'm not grossing a lot of money, or if I am, it's not at a point where I can start to really cut back at my day job. And a big factor was to say, well, what is the level of transparency for these coaches, right? Because there are a lot of people saying, hey, let me help you build your six-figure business. And, you know, do they take the time to actually understand, who I am and where I'm coming from as they, build a strategy around me, right? Because anyone could just say, hey, yeah, here's the package, here's the playbook. Sure, let's walk you through it and you execute. But if it's not true to who you are, there's no point, right? For me, right, I've already mentioned I'm very risk averse, right? I hate rejection and conflict, and yet somehow I understood that those had to be two of my biggest niches if I expected to, number one, for people to have any kind of credibility to take me seriously. And then so I said, yeah, I said, you know what, Carissa, she's vouching for people like me. She's helped people like me. Let me bet on this. Let me bet on this boat and see, bet on this horse and see where it goes. And yeah. And the biggest thing I'll be happy to say, guys, like there are other clients in the same group cohort that are moving faster than I am, and it's not that I'm jealous. Sometimes there are frustrating days I am. I'm just like, why isn't this going faster? But it is just to highlight, hey, like this is the area you're going to have to really move on and work on if you expect to really see the results that my other clients are seeing, and that is a fair assessment.
Yeah. And I know when you reference like your cohort, you're
Mm-hmm.
friends with your cohort. I know you're doing
Oh,
some of your own
absolutely.
lives and things like that. So it's like
Yeah.
like not really competition of like, oh man, frustration, but
Mm-hmm.
also hopefully for you too, seeing like, yeah, um, that's they're I know them. They're not some
Yeah.
person over there. Like
Yeah.
they're my buddy and my
Yeah.
friend, and it's maybe hopefully motivating to
Mm-hmm.
say let's And I know that what I love so much about all of y'all together,
Mm-hmm.
like the group of BIPOC entrepreneurs together
Mm-hmm.
was encouragement.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of it's not like let's leave you behind. Let's like come on, let's go do this
Yeah.
thing. What else do you
Yeah.
need, right? Like let's
Yeah.
make this thing happen. And I'm still seeing that
Mm-hmm.
even over the next few months that you have some stuff coming up,
Mm-hmm.
some LinkedIn lives and things like that with your cohort members. So because it's more fun to
Mm-hmm.
do it and much more palatable or easier to start when
Mm-hmm.
you do it with friends. So
Mm-hmm.
that's exciting for me to see you and the others kind of still working together, even outside. Y'all are done with my program, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
still lasting. That is huge for me to watch and to witness the support that's ongoing. Well, with that, Jerry, I'd love to also know what have been three things that benefits you got out of the program working
Mm-hmm.
with me. Yeah, what are the three? What are some major things that have happened?
Yeah, yeah. The first thing I can definitely am thankful for are all the spreadsheets you gave us, just as tools. Just it is. It's funny, but it's true, right? Because to be able to quantify the things, because that was one of my traps. I just said, well, let me just make more money than what I did previously. Let me just keep, eventually, like it'll land. And it's like, Jerry, what are you afraid of measuring? Like, why are you afraid to measure it, right? Because you know enough to make sure you don't get overdrawn in the bank, but like, are you just playing not to lose, or are you actually going to play to hit like the financial targets that that you determined and declared are important to you? So, I think that was the first big thing that I knew was necessary for me. The second was, yeah, the network that I now had technically had access to, because Carissa's like, hey, meet people, right? It wasn't just about the coaching program itself. You hosted plenty of socials to say, hey, meet more people, right? Like let's bring this caravan together, and not just people that are successful, but people that can relate to our stories and see how they intertwine and do that, right? The term I like to use is, if you want to run a marathon, start hanging out with marathoners. And so
Yeah.
this is that kind of thing that to do there. So that is the second thing. And the third thing, um, I think, yeah, just kind of what you referenced, right? The intentionality of the group to not just say, okay, well, we're done with the cohort. All right, good luck, see ya, right? And it's just the ongoing relationships that are now in play in order to do that. So between the content of of the meetings, and then along with the network you have access to, and then the ongoing relationships that have come from that. Those are three things that I definitely appreciated about the last 6 months.
Yeah, that makes me so happy to hear because that's why I moved from doing one-on-one coaching to the group, and y'all surprised me actually with how valuable the group experience was.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we did that 31-day challenge on LinkedIn, for you to post every day on LinkedIn, I know so many of you were like, I would not have done that on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I did it because of that, maybe
Yeah.
friendly encouragement or boost or competition, whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
from my peers and my friends in the cohort, and we did it together. And
Yeah.
again, seeing y'all like support each other was, I think that even was a big solidifier of your relationships too,
Mm-hmm.
was actually doing that challenge. So I'm glad that my intention actually exceeded my expectation. And it's also why now I'm lessening even my one-on-one
Mm-hmm.
work, because I used to value like one-on-ones here and say
Mm-hmm.
group experiences here, because you didn't get that customization and you didn't get that one-on-one attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's, yes, you want some of that and equally need this group. So it's more, it's like not so much this as it is like this now of like,
Yeah.
this only being hired because I only have so much time, so
Yeah.
to do individual work with. But
Mm-hmm.
really awesome to hear that. Jay, lastly, too, what are you most proud of, and what are you looking forward to most as you think about the future ahead as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited that I was able to put together a signature package that I wouldn't have happened without the input and feedback from the group, right? And so even as I iron out the exact, there's tweaks that can always be made, nothing set in stone, but I am excited to put together a signature package that says, hey, let's help you as an Asian leader become more visible, right? How do you get the right kind of attention? How do you become more vocal, right? Let's make sure you don't trip over your words in the middle of difficult conversations. Let's make sure you become more valuable. Say, yes, I matter, and here's what I do, and here's what I bring to the table. And even if you disagree, like, I'm okay with the fact that you disagree, right? And so these are the things that we want to help you with, so that whether you're dealing with personal conflict or professional conflict or internal conflict, yeah, let's make sure you can navigate that. Because I tell people, yeah, difficult conversations was the prerequisite for me, the one obstacle that continually stood in my way in order to become an effective leader. And so that's why that vocal piece is particularly, like, you could call it the wedge, right? Because when you learn to have the right mindset around conflict, or a more productive mindset around conflict, then you're really going to start to move things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Visible, vocal, valuable. It's your thing. I know it's like your framework,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so clear that
Mm-hmm.
it gets me excited to hear you talk about breaking that down so simply. Well, with that, I would love to just hear and for you to share with everybody as we wrap up here. What are you working on now? What
Mm-hmm.
are you really excited about? And maybe is there anything that you would like to share with people of how they might be able to get in touch with you or how to work with you?
Yeah, sure. So the the highlights from this past year actually came from a podcasting opportunity where I actually got to publish a chapter in a book, right? So now I'm technically a published author on top of all these great things. And so, yeah, I mean, it's so you guys never know what's going to happen as you build your network. So that's one option for those of you who are like, I barely know this guy. Sure, maybe a $25 book is not a big risk for you, and you can try things out. But for those of you who have been tracking with me for a while, yeah, I'm excited to offer the signature package. Whether you do the full 5 month enchilada, you could call it, or you do a 3 month like diet size sandwich, it's there for you, right? And if you're excited to learn more, by all means, please connect with me on LinkedIn or visit my website, adaptingleaders.com. Set up a call, whether you just want a free sample of coaching or you want to talk more about in detail about this coaching package and its terms. We're not here to push anything on anyone. I think that was another thing to tie back to Carissa. She was very good about being very gentle and saying, hey, these are the terms. If you don't like them, don't buy it. But if you do, I'd love to work with you. Right. And that was it. Like, it wasn't because I've sat through really bad pitches where people keep twisting my arm and just like, why aren't you doing this? You said yes to everything else. And it's like, I don't need that. So, yeah. And in the same way, this is how I'm presenting my coaching package, right? Like there's a lot of great things, right? We're going to help assemble your toolbox. That's another new term that I've been playing around with lately. I've got a lot of great tools. Which tools do you like? Let's put your toolbox together that works for you. And then also, yeah, there's a lot of great literature. So now it's not just about knowing the answer right then. It's about, I know where I can find the answers that I need. So between assembling your toolbox and then assembling resources and stories that will help you model the success that you're looking for, I'm excited to offer that to leaders and that I have a heart for.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jerry, for sharing all of this wisdom, your journey, you're just getting to know your personality and you a little bit more your story. I know that you focus on Asian leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and there were so many nuggets. I just want to kind of connect some dots here.
Sure.
I'm a published author.
Yeah.
I was on 70, 80 podcasts,
Yeah.
right? And so, as much as the work that you and I have done together, there's also stuff and you did that on your own. That was not something I taught you to do.
Yeah.
So, you also have a lot to share and inspire people with and give people nuggets around
Mm-hmm.
for business owners, right?
Yeah.
So, I will just drop that for folks who are listening, watching, that there's some wisdom around to get what is it like to be an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
and how did you do all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's time consuming, or that's a lot of stuff sometimes, right,
Mm-hmm.
too, and sometimes it
Yeah.
is about your network and such, but that's
Mm-hmm.
pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And even being an author,
Mm-hmm.
even being on these different podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
say, that's applicable to leaders,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of times for leaders, right, you're looking to separate yourself from everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and a podcast will help you do that. Features on a podcast or your own podcast will help you do that.
Yeah.
Contributing to a book will certainly help you do that. So I think the audience, like whoever's watching this is Jerry's just been sharing some stuff about whether you are a leader internally
Mm-hmm.
or you're someone who is either becoming an entrepreneur or already is one.
Mm-hmm.
There's some of the things that you've done is definitely inspirational. And like I said, what I'm hoping people can glean from this is what is possible,
Mm-hmm.
because especially what I love to showcase is not the people, the gurus who've made it already. That's
Mm-hmm.
inspirational, but there's a lot of people talk about them. Like what
Mm-hmm.
makes it easier for me, or to see that it's possible, is when I see someone who's um, just a real, like, for this is not exactly the right term, but like a real person, right? Not
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
celebrity or
Yeah.
not a guru over there, but someone
Mm-hmm.
who is in my world that I have
Mm-hmm.
almost a 1 degree, second degree connection to,
Mm-hmm.
that you too can also be an author or a podcast guest on, and an entrepreneur, even if you don't have all of those celebrity-ish type of things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
thanks for highlighting all of that.
Absolutely.
Anything last to share before we close out?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing just to take away from the journey, guys, is like when you feel free to experiment and build prototypes and test them out, like, and this is true in your personal life or your professional life or your as a business owner, right? You're just here to, put a prototype together, test it out. It's silly and it feels cliche sometimes just to say use the scientific method toward to build a better life, but that's exactly it, right? Like so many limiting beliefs we hang on to that we hardly talked about in this episode, really, but right, those have held us back. And we said, okay, well, let's prototype this. If we don't like this belief or we don't like what it's leading to, okay, what new belief do we want to prototype and test and see if that works? Not just simply for our internal benefit, but that we would have to share that benefit, not just for ourselves, but for the people we care about and the important relationships in our lives. So I'll leave it on this. So this is part of the design your life framework. So there's 4 things, right? Number 1, get curious. Why do I believe what I believe? What is it that I'm doing? Why am I doing this? Is there a better way? What would it be if there were a better way? Right. The second is to talk to people like Carissa or myself to say, hey, let's talk to people, see what they think. Like maybe they want to collaborate with us as we build this prototype. The third is to try stuff. So now that you've built this prototype, hey, like see what happens. Throw stuff against the wall, see what paint sticks. It's great. And then number 4, share your story. Right? Tell your story. People need to hear it. No one can tell your story better than you can, really. Like your parents might make a case, friends might make a case, but ultimately the world needs to hear it, right? Because just like Carissa's story of inspiration and whatever inspiring things to offer in my own journey, you never know who you're going to inspire or encourage that day. And it can't be, they can't enjoy it unless you share it. Right. So put that out there. Absolutely.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you, Jerry, for sharing your story with us. And folks, thank you also for joining Built by BIPOC. Built by BIPOC is about connection and inspiration to see what is possible. So if you liked anything that Jerry had to share today, very much encourage you all to connect and follow him on LinkedIn, all the socials, his website, etc. And then thanks to you all. If you want to follow me, I'd love that. You can find me also specifically LinkedIn. I've got tons of different programs that are coming out in the next few months that are helping you find your path on different parts of your journey, whether you're newer, you're a little bit more experienced, right? And for me, it's really about bringing a lot of the BIPOC entrepreneurs together in so many of the different programs that I do. So thank you all so much for joining. I'll see you next time, and have a great one. Have a great day.